Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you. You're watching another episode of Encounter. Today, in the studios of the NBC, we have Manish Bundhun, who is a facilitator for NLP. He's also an executive coach and also head of HR management in a top 100 company. Manish, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you for being here.
Hi, Roshan. A pleasure is mine.
Manish, you do so many things. You are a facilitator for NLP, and you're one of the first ones to certify NLP in Mauritius, and you carried out the first workshops. We have already had an episode in the previous seasons of Encounter on neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. Just a reminder for our viewers who watch Encounter, what is NLP?
Okay, so there are two ways we can look at it. NLP first is the three words which make it up, N, neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro has to do with the brain, how your mind works, how your brain processes information. Linguistics is the language of it, so how you use your brain to express yourself through the right language. And programming is how do you make up the models which allows yourself to manage your mind and your communication. So that's one, neuro-linguistic programming. But in simple terms, it's basically the art and science of modeling human excellence. That's what NLP is about.
Oh, fantastic. And you're one of the main facilitators for NLP in Mauritius. But if people want to know more, you can always watch the previous episode of Encounter on NLP on YouTube. But this is not the reason why Manish is here today. He's an executive coach. Manish, can you please give us a broad definition of what does an executive coach do in life?
Okay, so let me start by coaching, first of all. Coaching is basically leading with questions, okay? And an executive coach is someone who will help a person, will walk a journey with a person to move from A to B. And A to B means the executive part is how do you grow in your career and how do you thrive in your career and in your life. So leading with questions, helping the person discover new perspectives through those questions, as well as uncover your inner resources, inner treasures, and the answers that you need to find in order to move forward through the right questions.
And how does that relate to an executive coach? Does it have to do at a corporate level?
Yes, it's more in the corporate setting, in a professional setting. That's why we call it executive. You have different types of coaches then. You also have some people believe in life coaching, so more on a personal level, personal approach. Some people focus their coaching on transition coaching, so managing change. So if you need to change jobs, you want to change careers, so then you work with a transition coach. You also have relationship coaches. So you have different paradigms or perspectives to coaching. So I chose to focus on the corporate setting. That's why I call executive coaching.
But still in the corporate sector, a lot has to do with numbers and how you can show it's more quantitative. Yeah. But from what you just explained, asking the right questions, it's very hard to prove, right? Does that not make your job more difficult?
It's not more difficult. Actually, when you come to numbers, numbers is the outcome. But who drive the numbers? It's the people, right? So working with people is very often what I find leaders, executives, managers, and supervisors, team leaders find the toughest part of their job. That is how to build relationships with people, how to manage performance, how to provide feedback, how to set meaningful and stretch goals, and how to achieve together. So basically, that part of working with people is what makes extraordinary leaders, actually.
All right. And I guess you have gathered a lot of experience as the head of human resources at a top 100 company, and you've met people from different walks of life.
I won't say lots of experience, but in a humble way, interesting experiences over the past 18 years, working across multiple sectors and multiple geographies. And indeed, you learn a lot about people, through these experiences, through the interactions you have, and these encounters, as we can see, with people.
You have been an executive coach for quite a number of years also now. Do people come and see you, or is it a topic that is becoming more and more popular nowadays?
Indeed, it's growing, I must say. The awareness is growing. People are more attuned to working with a coach. Earlier, the earlier belief was that coaching is to fix a problem, is to fix people.
All right.
And at the end of the day, you know, when you're coaching someone, you're not coaching a topic, you're not coaching a problem. You're coaching a whole person, a whole human being. So whatever will come, even if it's a corporate setting, sometimes your personal life will come up. And you'll have to hold the space and help the person find the answers for that also. Okay? Yeah.
What do you mean by hold the space?
Hold the space is just like you do, for example, Roshan, is you hold the space with an invitee, with a guest, and you ask questions. And you allow the person to think, reflect, to pause, and to come up with answers which are meaningful. So holding the space is being with the person, walking that journey, having a state of compassion, having a state of understanding and clarity. At the same time, for me, it's a balance between support and challenge. So I'll provide support to the person. I'm here with you listening. And at the same time, I'm going to stretch you and challenge you with, again, the right questions.
The right questions. I will come back to this part later. Everyone needs a coach?
I would say, I would start with need, okay? The word need. Everyone will come across the need to have a coach at a point in time in their life, at different milestones, at different, comme on dit en français, des tournants de la vie. You don't need it the whole part of your life. You will need it when you feel the need, actually. So if you're going through a major change, just like, for example, at the moment we've gone through COVID, a lot of people are asking themselves questions about what's next for me, how do I go out of this downturn, and how do I make the best of myself? So these are important times when it's good to have a coach working with you.
Let's say, for example, I come to you. What would be the first things you do? What would be the first questions? Why would I, Roshan, come see you as a coach? Does it have to do with a different sphere, or I'm dealing with something difficult, whether it's personal or work or emotional?
No, it doesn't have to be like that. It's open in the sense that it's basically what you want to achieve, where you want to go. Very often, when people feel lost or confused, that's where it's good to work with someone as a coach to help you develop clarity first, to help you develop clarity, to help you develop the courage to act, and the conviction of your actions will help you move forward. So in that sense, how it would go about if we were to interact, to start a coaching conversation, the first conversation is simply to getting to know you.
All right.
And for me, it's getting to know you through your own lenses, to see the world through your eyes. How do you see the world? What are your dreams? What are your needs? What are your challenges? What are your fears? What do you want to achieve? What you don't want to achieve also? Very often people are clear also on what they don't want in their life, and is helping them transform that into exactly what do they want to do actually.
Manish, we were speaking earlier about the importance of asking the right questions. If I may take from my personal life and point of view, very often we have events happening in our lives and we ask questions, why this is happening, why is another thing happening? But very often I find myself going in circles, and sometimes it might become a vicious circle that might lead to mental illness. It happens to other people. I guess where you really come in is holding the space, as you mentioned earlier, but also helping people ask the right questions.
Yep.
What would be a right question to ask? I'm sure it varies from circumstance and to situations.
Definitely, it will vary in terms of context and where you're at. Basically, the whole art of asking questions, if you're interested by a resource to read more about this, there's a very insightful book by Michael Marcat, and the book is entitled Leading with Questions. Okay, It will help you understand the power of questions and asking, if you don't call it, it can be right question, but it's more about powerful questions, which will help you pause, reflect deeply, and help you develop clarity. Very often, if you're asking yourself the same questions and you're not getting the answers, it's simply because you're not asking yourself the appropriate questions. Okay?
What happens to a person when the right question is not asked? I mentioned earlier about you go in circles, but as a professional, can you dare to explain what really happens?
You get certain reactions from people. So, for example, I'll give you a very simple example. If you ask someone, why did you do this? Very often what happens? People go defensive. Was that the right question to ask? You might ask a different question. What's important about that to you? Then you'll see, in fact, it's you're asking the same thing. You're trying to find what's the motive behind that behavior, behind that action. But I just changed the way I said the question. Instead of asking the person why you're doing this, I just ask him what's important about that to you. You'll get a different answer.
So is it about not asking impulsive questions, but rather be wiser in your approach to ask the right questions?
It's about asking, not impulsive, but I don't think they are impulsive questions. It's more about being with the person, understanding what are the questions which will unlock the ability to think. Because sometimes you ask certain questions and the people get stuck because certain questions come loaded. And we loaded in the sense that we have mental associations from before that when I was asked this question before in my previous experiences through memory, that you didn't have the best of experiences then, so.
Manish, you mentioned earlier the 3 C's, which is clarity, courage, and conviction.
Yep.
I think that might be 3 stages of implementation when someone comes to see you. Can you give us an example of course, do not mention the name, of a situation where someone came to see you with a problem, and how do you work around it? I'm just trying to get more into the gist of how an executive coach is important.
Okay. So it's a journey. Very often it starts, for me, it's a partnering journey. We walk next to you. So there's no power distance, there's no I'm better than, it's really working at the same level. And so let me give an example. The thing is, as we lead by questions, there are 3 stages. You lead by questions to help the person develop clarity on where they are and where they want to go. Second, you help them develop conviction, or courage first, is clarity, then courage. The courage to dare and the courage to believe that they can do it. And finally, the conviction to act. That is, what will be the focus action you need to take in order to move forward. So let's take an example. Someone who is a bit stuck in their job. They're thinking, oh, what's next for me? Do I keep on doing this? I'm not happy in what I'm doing. So we start with understanding where you're at, how are you feeling about it, being clear about the emotions that are driving you, and at the same time, do you want to be in this job or do you want to move on?
Does that also apply to relationships?
It applies to relationships also.
Okay, I'll let you continue with that also.
It applies to many situations, actually. So the first step is really to develop clarity of mind. With a clear mind, everything is possible. Because when your mind is not clear, what happens is you're conflicted, you're confused, and you feel a bit lost or stuck.
Yeah.
And that's where people get stuck and they don't move forward. You feel you're stagnating. It's a bit, people feel then they're like the hamster in the wheel.
Does that also explain a bit why people tend to become lazy or procrastinate also?
You can explain that in that way. They can, I wouldn't say lazy, but they get stuck into it. They procrastinate, and then they start to, there's another 3 C's, which the opposite of it, which happens if you stay stuck, is you start to compare, you start to complain, and you start to criticize. Once you develop clarity, you're able to move forward.
Okay, and so moving on to after clarity is how you develop what needs to be done.
Yeah, the courage.
The courage.
So once you're clear, then it's really then how do you develop that leap of faith? the courage to believe in yourself, the courage to dare, the courage to dream, that a better possibility, a better situation is available to you. And things will eventually work out for you.
Okay.
So it's developing that self-belief then.
And finally, commitment,
Conviction.
conviction, the commitment towards the,
Commitment to the action
Yeah.
is to act with conviction, is to be confident in your competence to move forward. That's two more C's.
Manish, but all of it sounds very magical and just perfect that everyone who does it will work out. Is it really the case?
Well, I would say it doesn't have to be complicated, complex, or difficult. In simplicity lies artistry. And what I was saying is actually the whole work is done by the person, by the coachee, not the coach. Because your answers depend on the quality of your thoughts based on the questions which have been asked.
Can we say that the great qualities of a coach is to, I would not say the student or disciple, but the person who's come forward, he or she does not become dependent on the coach. Yes. So you have to encourage them to become more independent. And take their own course of action.
Yeah.
You're showing them the way.
Yeah.
So that's effective management also.
It is. And
effective leadership.
Leadership.
Oh, fantastic. So you would call yourself a leader?
I would say all of us are leaders, because the first element is you lead yourself.
Okay.
So the whole notion of self-leadership, so all of us are leaders.
Okay. Manish, you have presented us the whole aspect of how you work as an executive coach. How did this come to you?
Well, nothing happens by coincidence, right? And it's part of my life journey. We all go through a hero's journey in our life. And my life took a dramatic turn when I was 18. I was studying in Singapore. I had earned a scholarship to study at university, at the Nanyang Technological University. I was studying engineering. And my elder brother was there with me. So he was in third year and I was in first year. And after one semester, almost, for me, he was in third year, he collapsed on a football field. And he passed away there. And so from there, my life took a turn where I had to come back to Mauritius with his body. The most difficult thing I've ever had to do in my life was to call home and inform my parents that my brother had just passed away. And imagine when you're 18, life stops. I remember for 3 days, I did not have any tears, no reaction. I was under a state of shock. And it's only when I reached Mauritius, I got home, that I realized the enormity of what had just happened when I saw my parents for the first time after a few months. They had aged by at least 10 years. So that made me reflect a lot on the purpose of life, on what I have to do. Because I took a break, I had to forego my scholarship. My parents wanted me to stay in Mauritius and to study, not to go abroad, and I can fully understand that. I'm happy with hindsight that I chose to stay with them. And from there, started a journey of learning and investing in myself. Because the other thing, what happened to me was the 3 days which I went under shock, my whole emotional spectrum of managing my emotions, if I take it like a piano as a metaphor, all of us, we play the piano. You have the full keys as emotions. Yep. My keys for the piano were just this, in terms of emotions. So I would say I was emotionally constipated for a few years. And that, I felt like a blockage, and I had to learn to overcome that. So with time, having gone through NLP helped me a lot to work on myself, to discover my own resources, my purpose, and goals in life. And then from there, rebuild myself.
Manish, why was it so important for you to work on yourself? What made you realize that?
What made me realize was that, again, that clear voice in my head telling me, the only one you're waiting for is yourself. And you can only invest in yourself no one can do things for you unless you walk the path yourself.
All right.
So really start working on yourself, invest in yourself. That's where one of the things that I did which helped me a lot was get a mentor. And over the course of my career and my life so far, I've had amazing mentors who have guided me, and I'm very grateful for that. And that's probably one of the most practical tips I can give to people is get a mentor.
Manish, you have met many people. You're an executive coach since many years. What seems to be the major issue in our country in terms of people who come to see you?
I would simplify it that the main issue is an issue of leadership.
Okay.
Okay, leadership in the sense that people who come to see me, it's always complaining about, oh, my leader is like this, my boss is like this, my manager is like this, so I want to move away. So that's one. And the notion is, how do we cultivate a better level of leadership all across? And it all starts with self. Again, the notion of self-leadership. Walking the talk, and as you build self-leadership, you're able to influence people around you positively.
Can you share a bit how you would go about helping a person with this?
Yeah. So the first element of developing leadership is self-awareness. Okay, being aware of your purpose, your objectives, your strengths, your areas for improvement, your values. The more you're self-aware, the more you're able to develop clarity of mind. And again, coming back to then conviction and courage also to move forward.
Is there another topic or anything you would like to share before we conclude this interview?
I think it's maybe a quick distinction between what is a mentor and what is a coach, because I mentioned mentoring.
Yeah.
A mentor has a wider role. A coach is a subset of a mentor. So coaching is a subset of mentoring.
Okay.
A mentor will, again, 3 C's, will coach you, will counsel you, and will connect you. So a mentor will help you by leading you with questions when there's a need, will counsel you, that it will give you advice and guidance based from his experience or her experience, and also will connect you, that is, will open up his or her network to you. So that would help. So if you can't find a coach, find a mentor.
Manish, the reason why you're here is to speak about coaching, but you also shared before the interview that you're in the process of writing a book. You're also becoming an author. Can you share a bit about the book very quickly?
With pleasure. I've always had that calling to write more. Writing is, for me, one way to express the messages or the experiences I've had. And there's a specific quote which inspired me a lot by Dr. Wayne Dyer, who wrote The Power of Intention. And one of that his most insightful quotes is, "Don't die with your music still inside of you." So for me, writing is a way to express the music that's inside of me. Just like a lot of people, they have the music inside of them. It's about finding that music and finding a way to express it to the world.
Can I ask, what is your music about in the book?
The music is simply inspirations on how to live, learn, and lead a better life.
Well, rough seas make very good sailors. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of this episode of Encounter. If you have any questions on the guest or on the topic that was discussed today, drop an email. It's encounter@nbc.net.mu. And of course, if you have suggestions for the next guest or the topic to be discussed, you can also drop an email. Until the very next program, goodbye.